All right, welcome. It is so bright in here tonight. Hold on, I gotta adjust all that. No, I'll just leave it. Happy holidays. Thank you for taking time away from your families and your holidays to spend time with us. I thought it would be appropriate to bring in this unique group of beings because we all come there. Most light workers come from there, right? So for those of you who don't know me, I'm a trance channel. My name is Pamela Aaralyn. I've been speaking with extraterrestrial beings, ascended masters, angels since age 5.5. I created this channel probably 7 years ago or something to be able to share their messages. And after many years of trainings and writing some of their messages and singing some of their messages and channeling just privately to people, I decided to bring it here to you. If you'll notice at the top of the chat, there's a link that's there. That is my more private spiritual community. And it costs about $13 a month to support me there. And you get a backlog of channelings for, I think I started that one in 2017. So if you want those backlog of channelings that you haven't seen here before with other interesting beings, you can join that if you feel like it. And tomorrow our channeling there will be a human from the future from year 2111 from the New Earth Order. Her name is Chelsea. Friday. No, it's not Friday, is it?
Yep.
Oh, whoops, it's Friday, not tomorrow. Thankfully. I'm pretty sure it's Friday. Either way, if you miss it, there's a recording there, and all of the channelings that I do there are recorded. Someone says they can't hear it. I think everyone else can, or they would have told me by now. Refresh your screen. Sometimes that helps. Make sure you don't have earbuds plugged in somewhere and you can't see them. All those little things. Or turn up your speaker. Maybe it's that. I don't know. So I'm going to trance today for a little while. And then I'm going to wake up and give some light codes. These are light code activations for empowerment, which is something we really, really desperately need at this time. So that's why I'm bringing those in. How light codes work is when you hear one, it activates your chakra systems, the nadis, the portions of your DNA that are sleeping. It activates purposes. It activates parts of you that require healing and awareness. And it brings you out of dense places of survival into more, thriving. That's what light codes do. They're amazing. They calm down. They heal what needs healing. And they calm down and uplift the soul. So we're going to, when I awaken, give a few light codes for empowerment, light codes and activations.
Can they hear me?
Can you hear Anya?
Can you hear me?
Because she's going to be fielding a lot of questions when I'm in trance. So let's do a brief sound check on that. Because
we have a lot of questions prepared already. So I will try and get as much as I can from the chat, but it moves very fast. It makes it very difficult to catch them.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of questions here that we can use.
Yeah. We've already taken down a lot of things. So we'll see what goes from there. And then I'll awake. And if we have time after we do light codes when I wake up, we'll do some conscious channeling when I'm just aware and awake with the light codes. And I'll field questions provided that I'm well enough. Anya and I are both struggling with what we think possibly was or is COVID. So there's a lot of lower oxygen levels and breathing difficulties. And this channeling still had to come through despite all of that. But yeah, I woke up in the middle of the night with a super low oxygen. It's crazy. So we're taking all of our herbs and just trying to recover. So we're going to get through this as well as we can. But this channeling has to come out. It's just not going to leave me alone. All right, I'm going into trance. We are the Katama tribe from ancient Lemuria, and we are happy and honored and welcome. We welcome you into an atmosphere of truth, power, and love. If you choose to accept who you are today, and you say to yourself right now, I accept the truth of who I am today, that activation from here on out will enlighten your journey immediately. If you accept that truth, no matter what follows, your path will clear itself without much work from you, except to get out of your own way and to allow light to manifest itself throughout, within, and beyond the container of time. Who is here with us?
Hi, my name is Anya. Thank you for joining us today. We have some questions. Would you mind answering some for us?
We certainly shall, to the best of our ability,
Thank you.
within the constraints of language between us.
Okay. First question we have is, were you the first beings on Earth?
We are originally a tribe called Hathor. We extended almost directly outside of your universe, somewhat bordering, if you may. We were invigorated by the concept of duality, and we were a part of the free agency that created the containers of belief systems on your planet. We hold humanity very dear to our souls, and we always shall. You are our children. We are your ancestors. Inside of time, that shall be the case, but outside of time, we only intended to visit your planet, perhaps for a short moment. And what we saw there required great assistance. Therefore, those of us who began a journey to another planet that was very distant from our home, called Mu, those original founders of Mu and ourselves created a pact to incarnate on your planet as Lemurian beings in order to help the human race. Unfortunately, it hasn't gone as planned. Many of the Hathors returned home, our plans foiled by other visitors, galactic visitors to your planet, who had their own agendas, which weren't quite as wholesome or loving. Half of our tribe remained and incarnated upon your planet, blending our DNA with the Lemurians, and eventually with you as humans. The other half, again, had to retreat back home, right in the center and right in that moment of time, which you call the Atlantean-Lemurian Wars. In your biblical times, this was not the first moment of flooding of your planet, but the third. And unfortunately, there will be many more fires and floods and many things to come. But why we wish to speak with you today is to give you newer levels of awareness and activations that would hopefully prevent such atrocities and slow down an environmental disaster. This is our reason for speaking with you today. And it's a long, delicate, complicated story with how we came in touch with humans. We love you from afar, and we wish to continue, again, to help in whatever way you will allow, beliefs aside. For if you have not that, at the basis of all things in your heart, this message will be overlooked, and many more atrocities would then arise.
Thank you. Is it okay to ask some more questions before you give light codes?
Of course.
I was just wondering, where is Mu galactically?
Mu is between the Hydean Council and that territory, which is in Lyra, and on the edge of your universe and another. Sort of in what you would call a no man's land, if you will. Mu is hidden so that there will not be any wars over it. And it is primarily one of only 5 planetary systems remaining upon the boundaries between your world and ours, which has not been in war.
Thank you. Could you tell me a little bit about what you look like?
Our skin is of a color that cannot be identified by the human mind or human eyes. The cones and the rods in your eyes will shift the color to blue. Therefore, you will see our skin as various shades of very light blue. You will notice that we are taller. You will notice that we have a cat-like dragoness tail. And you will notice that we communicate through the tendrils of our hair, but it is not exactly hair, but ropes of energy, if you will, that perhaps you would see as braids. We're not sure exactly the word but that when many people have braids in your cultures, what is that? Many braids that you have, and there's a word in your language for this.
Can anyone in the chat give me that? I'm not a hair person. Dreadlocks I have here.
Yes, that is the word.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Our council says that is the word. So these are long entrails of energy that come from deep within our crown chakra systems. We too originate from chakra systems, much like you. And we originated in the Hyadian planets between Lyra and some other unknown universe of which you are not familiar. And we called this planet Mu. You have also called it Avalon, or the center of it, Avalon, in many of your discoverings. We are tall. We have very long fingers. We transmit light from our fingers, and we can also receive frequencies and then transmit those frequencies into particular vibrations that heal or that share sound-based healing activations for the purposes of physical, mental, emotional healing in humans. We also communicate with plants, and you can do the same. We were the first beings that taught you to communicate with plants when we met Lemurian individuals who you now call Native Americans or Aboriginals from other countries or simply indigenous tribes. You began to realize something about us, and in your lore or myths and fairy tales, you would call original Lemurians, the Hathor tribe, you would call us mermaid. You would call us that. And we noticed, and I know we were kind of steering off the course of what we look like, but there were Originally, the Lemurians that swam in your oceans were similar to humans, except with the same blue skin that we carry today. We brought that through, and you thought that mermaids were only in your fairy tales or lore or myths. And we brought that genetic quality through with the long entrails of hair, somewhat human qualities, except larger eyes, a smaller nose, a smaller mouth, and smaller lips, higher cheekbones, larger ears that were slightly feline, coming from originally the planet Mu held the Lyran feline race, and we carried over these cat-like tendencies in both our hands, our graceful movements, and a long tail. But our original state was with a fin, if you will, a long tail that could swim very quickly in the waters. What we observed in our first incarnations as Lemurians on your planet, in our very first incarnations, was that there were other human-like beings that were living in what we could only describe to be pods underneath the water in a city that you now know of as Atlantis. You also believe that that is myth. And these pods held these human-like beings who had a tail that can still be seen today in utero when you are using your finer technologies that you call ultrasound. The baby begins with this spine-like tail that seems to extend further. And some of you who carry our genetics more deeply, even now, have what you call transverse anatomy in the spine, and you will have 1 or 2 or 3 extra tailbones that extend, and that is how you carried the DNA from us when we were water beings into who you are now. But I regress. Going back to the pod-like beings with the tail, you would transmit a unique sound that sounded like "hoo," and that is how we came up with the word human. And there was "ah" in there as well, and "ma" was the original sound of divine goddess, which we worship. So we had "hu" and then "ma," and you were originally called Huma, and then we had to make that plural for proper English, of course, and proper languages throughout, but in your language we added the "in" for the state of plural. And it became interesting. In Latin we had to add something else. It was an "I." In other languages we had to make something singular or plural. But you did not show up with just a man or just a woman as your stories portray in your religions. You walked out of the water when you were birthed from the pods, placed there from your ancestors in Mu, and from your ancestors in Lyra as a whole. And no matter where you come from as humans, originally you started in Mu or in some place in Lyra, and that is how it originally was. When you would birth from these pods, we would hold you because you were tiny, runt little things. And we would hold you because you couldn't swim very well. And then eventually we noticed that your tail began to disappear. It was about 5 feet long. If you can imagine a baby human looking a little bit more like a tadpole, that is what you originally looked like. And we held you and nursed you and nourished you, and we sang you those same tones, hu and ma. But when you were ready, your tails would retreat and they would fall off, and then you walked onto land. We didn't know what to do when you first walked out of the oceans, quite frankly. Therefore, we had to send down more of the Hathors, who could create a being that could also walk out of land with you, and you called that being Mother.
Wow. Thank you for that. That's very interesting.
You are welcome.
We have a question here. Angel wants to know, is Mu mostly water?
Mu is primarily a plasma-based environment with a sort of gelatinous environment that on the surface appears like water, but humans are not suited for it. And it is made out of the constellations, out of the same nitrous-based material, and is plasma-based as well. It is a very unique substance, and our beings don't necessarily swim or walk through it as you would suspect from what you understand from a human perspective, but we transport ourselves through it, and our cities are underneath it inside of a similar pod.
Thank you very much for your answer.
It's a similar pod as we were describing for the first pod for humans, similar to a womb, and there is much plasma energy surrounding the city.
Sounds wonderful. Could you describe a little bit of what your culture is like?
On Mu or on Earth?
On Mu first. Be nice.
For the Hathorian beings that still reside in various places, the planet on Mu has a non-hierarchical order where everyone understands each other based upon telepathic response and connection. We are beings who are highly emotionally sensitive, yet we hold no concept of hatred. We held and still hold no concept of, I suppose, what you would call lower vibrational frequencies, as the one I just mentioned, hatred or anger. We do not experience wrath or vengeance or jealousy. We do not experience anything of that nature. We do not experience suffering when we give birth. We do not hold concepts of male or female. We hold concepts that everyone simply makes love. Everyone does this by vibration or sound, and that is how reproduction occurs, is through the nature of sharing of one song. We don't hold much comparisons in your culture, therefore it's difficult for us as Hathorians on Mu to explain what that would look like to you. We do occasionally have random illnesses, but they are not anywhere near what you would consider painful or suffering based. We are deeply connected to beings. We don't perceive crystals as you do as rocks or tools, but as actual beings. And our entire cities are built out of crystalline beings who are wise enough to hold all policy that we require for peace. Yet, again, we aren't born with a nature of harm. We aren't born on the planet Mu with any particular nature that would be similar to what you would understand. So our culture, unless you were to be more specific, would not be easy to explain to you as you would attempt to compare it to a human culture. When we were in the oceans, when we were swimming beings that you called mermaid and other things, we simply called ourselves Hathorian Lemurian. We had cultures that involved just simply minding these new human species that were unique souls who wanted to be brave enough to incarnate and to experience this grand library. And Earth is that. Earth is the grand Akashic library. It is a record of all things. And when you come here, there is a degree of mastery, and you are aware that there would be difficulties and pain. But our primary culture as Lemurian Hathorian beings in the oceans were to nurture and protect you from animals that were also arising. All the animals did not just suddenly appear. They had to evolve from many, many species and in many ways, and many of them came from the lands and the rocks, the ancients that created them, from the waters as well. And those beings were volatile, and they would have you as a snack if we were not there to nourish you. And we could not say that it was easy not having a mother at first, and we had to create one for you. We had to do that as soon as we saw that your tail retreated and you walked out of the oceans onto land. You needed the Ma, the mother.
Thank you very much.
From the point of time that we were on land with you, we began to assume human features as well. And again, you called us Lemurians, you called us Native Americans, Aboriginal beings, or original indigenous peoples. And we began to adapt to look like you so that we could father and mother you. And we got this glorious opportunity to play the role of masculine and feminine, which we had never done before. And we were so very excited to experience this with you for the first time, and to transmit all of our genetic qualities into your DNA so that you would be born with love, so that you would be born in unity, so that you would be born in, I suppose, what you would call in your religions, a heaven on earth. And we began at that time to create cultures based upon elements of fire, earth, air, water, and ether. We began to create the dancing rituals. We began to create fire rituals for harvest. We began to create the original sacrifice rituals, which were not killing, that came later by you. The original sacrifice rituals for harvest involved just sacrificing something like a small portion of your grain, or a small portion, of meat that you had already tended and killed and eaten, because you were originally meat eaters. You were born to be meat eaters, and many of you still are. We were not, so we had to adapt and teach you that. And at that point in time, there began many levels of hierarchy from the moment of your first killing of other sentient beings. When you were evolved for that, while it didn't surprise us that this would be what was required of us, we were all in this together. We, as evolving Lemurian indigenous, partially human beings, as we evolved into more human-like beings, our skin began to be tanned under the sun, and reddened or sometimes yellow, depending upon the part of the world where we came forth from the waters. And we carried unique traits. We were not sure that we understood why there was something bred in you, that because of duality, you had to have life and death. And this meant that you had to kill things. This meant many things. And from there, much has happened in our cultures with you that would likely require many, many more of these times in speaking and sharing for us to explain our cultures. But again, we were in it together. We learned from you, you learned from us. We were your mothers and fathers and grandfathers. And when we left your planet, we were killed off by various wars from beings known as Atlanteans, and sometimes by other humans as well. Therefore, we now have left you our DNA, and as starseeds, we continue to reincarnate upon your lands so that we can hopefully correct some of the pain that was started in the original wars on your planet. And we will continue to help you in this way. And when we can find clear channels or authors, perhaps there will be writings or sacred songs that we share, or teachings such as this that we will share through people who can remain clear. This will require many years of explanation, and you must be particularly open and to think outside of your current belief structures, which have been in existence for millions of years. This will not be an easy feat for us to get through to you, because you continue to compare to your political structures, your religious structures, how you were parented, your educational cultures, and so on and so on. But you do not come from there. And you must see outside of that in order to understand our culture and how we are responsible for you and how much we love you.
Thank you. Can you explain, when did it all go wrong for humans? Like, when did all this human turmoil, the greed, the selfishness, the suffering, when did all that start coming into stuff for us, you know?
When we learned that you required, in order to live, that you required something that would need to die, we knew that that was the beginning of this. We knew also that you had a searching for power. You had a longing for knowing who God is and knowing who created you. And you knew it wasn't us. It wasn't just your fathers or your grandmothers. And from that point on, you began to share power until other beings, how should we say this delicately, other beings from other systems who also were experiencing duality, but not on Earth, begin to infiltrate. They begin to visit your planet. They begin to incarnate. The planet was a free-for-all. No one had thought about that. Perhaps Source did, excuse us boldly, but no one had thought, in all of our leaders who began this experience with Lemurians as the first beings, no one thought that these other plans, these other beings would come in and create the giant wars that they did. That wasn't happening in our lands. And we were completely on another side of the universe from all of that damage. And we were not aware that free will meant your planet was completely open for other beings to inject their own DNA into humankind. They could also incarnate just like we did. They could also swim into the waters and create great disturbances. We didn't understand that that's what duality could possibly lead to, because we had never experienced it before.
Okay.
It was new. It started from there. And other beings, like the Maldakians, other beings, like the Alpha Draconi, other beings came in who were primarily non-sentient. And this began many great wars, many periods of fighting over power, and power structures were created to keep the beings out. But again, up until recently, your planet was a free-for-all. And now we have a veil lifted in a certain degree, but we have a shield. Your veil from knowledge was only for your protection, and we did not place it. You see, the Council of Nine placed that for your protection, so that you could forget about all of this pain and simply focus on being a proper human being. Now, what would you think that looks like? It meant creating fire, living from the land, killing the animals, eating the plants, birthing, suffering, and love, all of the things that we began to learn alongside you that you wanted to sign up for. That's what being human meant. Therefore, we placed a veil around you so that you could forget that you're from the stars, because as long as you kept looking for us after we had gone, you would not truly be empowered, interdependent, intelligent, evolving beings as humans, as a brand new species, you see. This was a pact between us and you that you have also forgotten because of that veil of forgetting. Unfortunately, you had the veil of forgetting without the shield of protection. Now your veil of forgetting is lifting, and your shield of protection is stronger. There is much less interference. Now, we are aware that we've made a very grand jump of millions of years to get here. And we had to have the Galactic Council of Nine's permission because they reside over all of these experiments that you wanted to explore.
Wow.
Now, let me tell you another part of your story. Going back to the point where the veil was placed, but you didn't have protection because, again, free will planet for all to explore, not just humans. All of the animals that you see also hold some Lemurian or perhaps Atlantean or perhaps Meldekian DNA or perhaps Alpha Draconi DNA. You see? This was a big galactic library for all beings, and we had grand hopes that you would not kill each other. At the time, we didn't even know the word kill, you see. We learned from you. We didn't know that. Half of our species was exterminated because we didn't know, and that half was exterminated during the Atlantean and Lemurian wars, you see? So when all of these other beings began experimenting with Gaia, that is the original name of your planet, then it was just spaghetti on the wall, if you will. Anyone could throw it. And they began to also beings began to insert their DNA into humans, etc. Other souls wanted to have a hodgepodge of experiences. They wanted to be sentient and non-sentient at the same time. They wanted to be overtly sexual and then become a gray being without any proposed sexuality or ability to reproduce. There were so many things the various souls wanted, you see. But most of you are originally, if you are awake today, you are originally from Mu or Lyra. And then you came as either humans or as a Lemurian soul, one or the other, onto your planet that you know as Earth.
Oh, thank you for that answer.
We apologize for jumping all over the place, but
no apology needed. It's really cool.
And we left out the dinosaurs. I'm not sure how we did, but that occurred in our time as well.
You were here while the dinosaurs were here.
Absolutely, and we had to protect you from them. Can you imagine that? A feeble little child whose tail was barely retreating up into its spine or had fallen off, and it could barely stumble around. It didn't know language, it couldn't feed itself, and then you had, what? A velociraptor coming after you. Depending upon where you lived in the world, this could be a problem. And some of these dinosaurs were sea dinosaurs. We don't know all of the names of them, and your scientists have renamed them from the time that we knew them, but they would come up and eat the human pods in the waters before they could be born. So eventually we had to evolve to allow us to birth you. We had to learn about sexual reproduction so that we could birth you through our bodies and protect you in a pregnant mother and have that experience. Otherwise, the beings would eat the pods in the waters.
Were you here when the dinosaurs were made extinct?
Yes.
And how did that happen?
Depending upon where, some of them were evolved out in the same way that animals become extinct in your modern times, simply by, what do you call it in your science, survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
There were 3 great floods. There was an ice age. There was also a meteor impact. So all of your theories on this are accurate, and it occurred at various stages of the Earth, depending upon which set of dinosaurs you're speaking of.
Wow. Thank you for that. That's very interesting. We have a question here from Maria. She wants to know, what was the purpose and function of the Lemurian quartz crystals?
The original Lemurian quartz crystals were in our cities, and we began to ask that they separate components of their energy and then return to that wholeness and travel in such a crystalline form through the cosmos. And these beings traveled in ships or sometimes by light transmission. Not everything travels in ships. It's just too big, if you will. So some of the things in your time today, such as the Great Pyramids, those were originally, what is it that you call these things you're always on that you call smart?
Smartphones.
things. Yes, those. Can you imagine smart rocks that can transmit through light? They are teleported, if you will, through a light transmission by the crystalline elders of the Hathors. The Hathors are originally crystalline beings on the planet Moon and other various places as well. But the ancient ones, the ancient Hathorians, would perform a light transmission and just send that being, teleport, if you will, although that is not our word. It's just instant speed of light transmission. And then another, and then another, and then another. And those tiny Lemurian quartz were tiny little minds and souls operating inside of Syrian and Egyptian stone.
Wow.
And when the sun activated them, they would move together because they had a pre-programmed purpose to become your temples and for what you know today as your pyramids. So these were some of the purposes of the Lemurian quartz beings.
Wow, thank you for that.
And we also created the Atlantean crystalline empires and temples that sunk to the ground later on. We created those in the same way.
Wow. Thank you for that. Joan would like to know, what crystals can we use to connect to you?
Lemurian quartz crystals or record keepers.
Okay, thank you very much. Angel would like to know, is the next cycle fire for the earth?
You see, we are not exactly prophetic beings. Perhaps when the channel awakens, you should ask a prophetic being, such as herself, but she doesn't like it either. We don't particularly like to say it's going to happen this way and then this. We can only tell you your alignment at the time. Your alignment at the time involves massive disaster, fire, ice, climate change. That is, it saddens us to hear. This is not a political matter. When you are relating this to a political matter versus a matter of caring for your planet, we are not politicians. We know nothing. But when we attempt to share this with great channels on your planet, they say that it doesn't exist. And if anything makes us sad, it's that. Your Earth is disintegrating. It is heating dramatically. And no, this is not some political agenda that we share. We are beyond that. And you should be also. Please lay your beliefs aside and hear us. Earth is crying for you. Please treat her well.
Well, thank you for that. I have a question here from Christine. And she said, what is Hawaii's connection to Lemuria?
This was a master port for many transmissions. There were 3 master temples in various places in Hawaii, and they were created in the form of giant mountains, which were originally, you're going to love this, they were originally spirit animals. So there's one that looks some like an elephant. Is that your animal?
Yeah,
the elephant.
elephant.
Another that looks kind of like a whale, and another that looks like a goddess, and you named her after one. There are various mountains that were originally beings, crystalline beings, much similar to the Lemurian elder beings that took portions of their soul to incarnate for you. So that was built in the same capacity, the islands of Hawaii. And this is why we hold great, great love for Hawaii, because we were first there. We were first there, and we were also close to New Zealand, and some of the original Maori tribe were us before everything got tainted and before culture became involved. We were at various places all around the world, not just Hawaii, but Hawaii was the first home for Lemuria.
Wow, that's beautiful. I have a question here from Angel. She said, so this is a seeding of all the planets and galaxies into one planet. And she's wondering, is there any other planets like this?
No, my friends and family, you are quite unique and beautiful. It has gone a little out of hand, which is why we're here today.
Mm-hmm.
And we put that mildly so as not to frighten you. But now is the time for great awakening, for great action, to really sit with yourselves and to go deeper into the culture of your heart, not of your worlds.
Oh, Okay. Thank you for that. I have a question here from Lady Venus. She wants to know, are we healing the water at the moment?
We are attempting to do that for you. You have not done a dramatic job at that just yet. You have made some small effects, and we encourage you. Your environmental scientists are learning more every day about how particularly to clean the water, but this is going to take some time, and we will give all of our advice for that. Over time, we will give much advice on how to do that. But for now, we will tell you the same as perhaps other races have told you who've come through this channel: purify, store your own water. You can do this with certain algae and a system of algae, and that is currently on your scientific horizon, as well as activated or just plain charcoal if that takes longer, perhaps hours longer. But between those two things, you should be able to purify, properly store, and then distribute your water. So now is the time to pay great attention to that in your living environments.
Thank you for that advice. Have you any other advice for 2023 for us?
Right now, the Ascension update that we have is that you are not exactly at the tipping point. You are not where you need to be. You're in this stagnant place of around 40%. And it's close, but not enough. We need a lot more awakened beings, and we are aware that that's going to take time. Thankfully, your mode of ascension has shifted. It used to be that you required more than 50% of your population in order to ascend, and you would ascend as a whole into various existences and densities as a whole together. Thankfully, you aren't ascending that way anymore. Some of you are experiencing 5D right now. And perhaps you get easily tempted to go back into the frequency and the density of other planes of existence, but you don't have to. And the more you can really understand that you can feel the entire gambit of emotions without shifting into that density, without doing that, the quicker you're going to be in more collective ascension. You need to work together, because once you decided as a collective to experience individual ascensions, you began to separate more. You began to say, well, I'm ascending and he or she isn't, and I'm not. I feel held back by this other person, which is no longer the case. It's no longer the case. So keep in mind that even though you need a lot more to see big differences on your planet, perhaps your children and your children's children will see big differences on your planet. Because of you, this planet will still be alive. Because of you, you will not have blown yourselves up. Because of the type of children that you are rearing today, the type of scientists that are no longer as dualistically centered, but still very intelligent, brilliant even, logical even. Everything is shifting, you see, and it's because of what you're doing now. So please don't become impatient now. It's just began, and we need you.
Okay, thank you. I have a question from Wermu. Did you have any input with the introduction of Moldavite crystal?
That one wasn't us.
Do you know who it was? Okay. That's fair enough.
You can thank us for many things, but actually, Lemurian beings are mostly ambivalent or somewhat even put off by the frequency of Moldavite for unique reasons.
As is the channel. How's the channel doing?
Fine thus far.
Okay. What to do for Gaia is a question here from Empire 333.
Can I make this practical for you?
You can, of course.
Create less trash.
Okay.
Purify your water and purify your minds. This isn't exactly a big emotion fest to get to where we are or to return home. Secondly, perhaps just know this: you don't have to reincarnate. You don't have to. This isn't prison. That ended a long time ago. That fear that you have created so many portals of dream thought that encapsulated you and kept you stagnant in the spirit world temporarily. You would have terrifying near-death experiences and then come back and share with the world that the rest of the world is in prison. And the truth is, you aren't. You dreamt it for yourselves. You experienced it because you are that powerful, and your fear created it. So when you see that choice to come back or not, if you're doing so for your family, we certainly understand. We're not going to tell you what to do. But if you don't have to, why are you? Let this experiment finish itself out so that Lemurians can come back in a fresh way, so that all the other beings who are now still incarnating into your planet kind of just, well, they die off, so to speak. All the reptilian beings in your governments, all of the Alpha Draconi that control things politically, let them die off. They're a dying race. They're not immortal. And they're not allowed back. You know that? They're not actually allowed back. That's a closed door for that. Earth for your grandchildren will be immensely different with a much more loving governmental process. This is why the channel has been sharing some experiences with channeling humans from the year 2111, because you're beginning to see that it's not all bad. And yet some of you are still holding on to your belief systems. You're terrified that if you can't choose to be a male or a female, that something's wrong with you or for you, that something's been done that's wrong. Do you realize that we Lemurians are not male or female? We don't care. We are a loving beings. We are from you and you are from us. You don't need to be what you think you need to be, but because you keep hanging on to gender as an idea of who and what you are, to your sex organs as an idea of who and what you are, for your right to peace or have war. When you want peace, then you blame others for the war. When you want others, you're angry at the peaceful ones and you want to take them over. Why do we want all of these things, you see, as humans? Why? Why is that? Why do our children still want this? It's a question only you can answer. You believe that the future can be something boring or callous or controlled or some Orwellian environment. Some of you, that's your favorite nightmare. And that won't be. That's not what the future looks like. But you must release the way you're doing it now, because that duality didn't work from the beginning, and it doesn't work now. So if you choose to come back, it's a little hint. Don't choose to do it that way. That's all.
Thank you so much for that answer. I have a question here from Pamela Smith. The question is, what is the purpose of the Bermuda Triangle? Can you tell us anything about it?
Oh, do you really want to know?
I think we do. Go for it.
Okay. So the Bermuda Triangle, scientifically speaking, is a bit of similar to a portal, or even close to a wormhole, except your scientists don't believe that black matter could even exist that close to Earth. Why is that? What limited measuring devices are in your field, scientists, that you believe that something like that could not exist? Because when water and air exist in a unique way, a portal is created. And that's the same for anything. This isn't something that's science fiction. This is science in our lens. We all are aware of this in Lemuria. So that portal is for people to go home.
Wow.
They want to go home. Their souls know it, but they don't. They just want to go home.
Wow.
They don't want to do this anymore.
Okay.
It's not a sad thing. They just want to return home.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. It's very intriguing. I have another question here. Are we ready again for crystalline power sources?
No. And you know why? Who would get a hold of it in your governments? What would they do with it?
Yeah.
Luckily, they don't even know what the small crystals can do in the right hands. But what if a big crystal got in the wrong hands?
Yeah.
No way.
Well, another question here from Damon. What is the best way to connect to the heart?
Sound. It's always sound.
That's really cool. I have another question here. Could you please talk about the whales? What is their mission or contract on Earth?
Whales are here, much like any other being, to remind you that vibration can lead you home, that vibration can keep you safe, that vibration can lead to food, to life, or to death, that vibration is the ultimate way to stay in deep connection with each other. Whales are about connection. They hold the frequency of connection, and they are there to teach you.
That's incredible. I have another question here. What is Lemurian's connection with archangels?
Lemurians do connect much like any other species. Any sentient species will have an original point of archangel species. So archangels are just beings that are very evolved in the order of angels. You have the cherubim and the seraphim and the Elohim and the Hashmalim and many, 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 many orders of angels that you are unaware of, even the Ophanim, many, many. So just for angels, not just for archangels, but every being that is sentient has an angelic background or a dragon background, one or the other. Lemurians come from a unique group of beings known as Elohim. And then the Hyadian beings, which are also Hathorian Lemurian beings, come from Seraphim. And these are the two angelic orders that created the original humans in the womb pods, that we call them, that were placed in your oceans. Those were the first humans on Earth.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you so much for that. Dee Dee says that she sings to the water. She knows a lot of people do that, and she wants to know, is it helping purify our water?
That is a complicated answer, because from this scientific level of purification, you're going to require much more than that. And that is the truth. And in order to enlighten the places in the amygdala and portions of the brain that will require certain galactic intelligence in your scientists, those scientists need to be less dense. They need to invigorate themselves and have less dense bodies and create certain things that purify the waters. And your environmental scientists are on the realm of that, some of them. And then there's just also that can happen. But while the ocean is being polluted at such a grand scale in ways that most people simply aren't aware of, the beginning scientists who are coming up with these technologies can't keep up. They have the technologies that we've given them, and we've transmitted this information into their minds for them. And they're testing it and it's working, but they can't keep up with the devastation that you cause, you see.
Wow.
Because again, you still have 60% of the population that are not awake at all.
Wow. Is there any closing message that you'd like to give us? Or do you want to give us the light codes while the channel is asleep? Or do you want to wait till she is back?
If we give them during this time, her brain may or may not hold that message for us to repeat it for you.
Okay.
So that's the thing, is that she can retain great amounts of information only when she's awake.
Okay.
So we can give this to her and we'll say it to you once and that's it. Or you can awaken her and she may say it multiple times because she has, big brain.
She has a big brain.
Big ego too, but
we'll go with the big brain choice there. Is there anything that you'd like to advise us or tell us about before we bring her back?
We don't want you to fear. You're going in a beautiful direction. Instead of closing off every time you reach some new degree of spiritual data or new information for yourself, and it's new to you, and no one else has told it to you before, we want you to listen with this, not with this. That's all. We want you to listen to this and let your soul talk to you, and know that we are giving you information for what you can manage and handle at the time, for your deeper degree of awareness, for your evolution, for the health of the planet, and for your ascension. We want you to know that we love you, and we want you mostly just to be open, to be unafraid, to call in your deepest degree of awareness to the truths that we've shared today. And if you cannot accept it now, it is fine. Place it aside and perhaps listen at a different date. But keep in mind that if everyone works together, we can save Gaia, and we can all begin to have a healthy, whole planet. We love you. Shaya Kanada. That is goodbye. We love you in Lemurian. Shaya Kanada.
Shaya Kanada. I like that. Thank you so much for answering all our questions today, and for looking after us so well that we don't even know all the stuff that you do for us. But thank you very much for everything you do for us.
We will continue. We will continue. We love you. We are responsible for this, and we will continue. We will not let the ship go down.
Okay, thank you so much.
And there it goes. I'm back. Oh.
Well, we made a call with them to bring you back. They mentioned you had a big brain and that you'd be able to repeat the stuff a couple of times rather than just once. Yeah, I questioned the big brain part as well, but they insisted.
If you say so. Do you guys want me to write them down like I typically do so that you can take them home and work on them? Oh, Shaya Kanada to you. I know that language. Do you want me to write them down? I know you typically like that. So the first activation for empowerment is an activation of remembrance, okay? Remembering who you are. Really big, important thing. Huge. Okay. Hopefully I wrote this down big enough, and I won't get the lights glare on that. For those of you who like to take screenshots there, here's your activation for remembrance. You can say it, sing it, speak it, speak it, or just you can do it over and over again. I'll give you the hand codes that go along with it, but those are harder to remember. Those are more about the feeling. Okay. Ea Meayela. Got that? Ea Meayela. Cre Elia Lalma. Got it? Cre Elia Loma Solteramu. Yeah. You can probably almost translate that last part. Right? Did everyone get that? Ella mea leal, ella mea yela, crea laia lalma solteramu. Got it? Ella mea yela, crea laia lalma solteramu. Here's your second one. I like to do light language slowly, deliberately, and intentionally. As many times as you want to try to remember. I like to use, they've given me that activation many times before. So I like to use it when I feel like my lack of boundaries, or like I don't understand, like I feel myself kind of, with the way that my aura is, I tend to merge into people and kind of lose who I am as a human. So I use this one to kind of put up a little force field or shield, if you will, so that I can kind of stop merging into people. Have you guys studied a lot about the auras of channels and healers? Most of us have either like a crystalline color that merges and blends all the time, or we'll have a pink, or, you know, a rainbow field. Mine is crystal. So it changes all the time based upon who I'm around. So if I'm around a friend, and this is just such a channeling thing, if I'm around a friend and they're like really kind of like powerful leaders and out there, like I'll blend and they will pull that out of me. Right? If I'm around a narcissist, it's not great. Right? And then it sticks for a while. That's not the good part. It sticks for a while. Right? So when you use this one, this activation I just gave you for remembrance, it just makes you stop doing that. And then you won't have to go like clean your aura later and be like, well, I mean, I know they're a good person, but I don't want to become them, right? So here's the second one. This activation for empowerment is called the Return to Power. A lot of us need this one right now. Okay. Iliayama kre ela kaya re lalma. Lalma means love in Lemurian, just so you know. Every time you see it, there's something there for you with that, with love. And we have to stay in love to return to our power when we feel it fading. Got that? Iliayama kre ela kaya re lalma. Kaya re lalma. Iliayama kre ela kaya re alma. Oh, you can't see it? Can you see it now? Some people are saying they can't see anything, but I'm holding it right up.
I think they said that while you were.
Somebody says her screen is black, but my screen isn't black, right?
No, you can see it.
Okay. I'm just checking. All sorts of technical malfunctions happen when I channel, so I just wanted to check. Do screenshots. That's the best way to learn. You can learn light language, guys. You don't have to have the big brain, as they called it, or whatever. The more you hear and practice, and see this, you'll learn it like any other language. And you'll be able to recognize it. Oh, hey, this is Lemurian, or hey, this is Andromedan, or Eliayama, Che'ela, Kaya, Relama.
I'll put a copy into the Patreon post.
Yeah, and Anya will take some pictures and put it into the Patreon
It'll
post.
be for public as well.
Yeah. Okay, I can feel my lungs just not liking me right now. So I'm going to go take a break and take an inhaler and hopefully be better for tomorrow's channeling too. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the channeling of the human in the future, year 2111, from the New Earth Order. She's interesting. You will like her. I will see you really soon, okay? Bye.
Friday's channeling.